As generative AI has kicked off, it's changed the geography and infrastructure of this technology that you've urged us to think about, not as this mystical thing on the cloud, although it is a so-called cloud, but something that lives in minds and in tech centers and in towns that has a geography, right? I'm a geographer, as Jana mentioned, so I love your Alice stuff, just in principle. But talk to us about this visualization, this anatomy of an AI, which is a kind of another map, and the work you've been doing about this lived geography, this extant thing.
Yeah, it's a delight to have a geographer with us on stage. Map nerds, let's go. So this work, again, this was Vladan and I, this is before Calculating Empires, this is the precursor. So if Calculating Empires is a story about power and technology over centuries of time, this is about power and technology over space. So we've moved from time to space, and this one really came about back in 2016, where a lot of the conversation around sort of building what was then much more about predictive AI was looking at the sort of data and technology pipeline, what you kind of see there in the middle. And then we started sort of going, well, this doesn't tell you anything about, you see this beige container of an Amazon Echo, like it looks like it doesn't really do anything. It's barely creating a physical imprint. So instead, we opened it up, we looked what was in it, we found where the components come from, where they're mined, where they're extracted, how much the miners are paid, what their health conditions are, and then all the way through to the end of life of the devices, where they get thrown out, generally after about 3 to 4 years, into e-waste tips in Ghana and Pakistan, where they poison waterways and the soil, and cause this kind of horrifying whole of life cycle. And this, for me, this changed me as a scholar. I mean, I think really before this time, I was used to going to archives, sitting at my desk, reading papers. This put me in the world in a really different place. And it meant that I would now, spend the next, 8 years in mines, going inside factories, going to data centers, speaking to people who were labeling data sets or, extracting lithium. And for me, those material landscapes are what is the real story of AI right now. And it's extraordinary. In 3 years, we've seen basically the creation of the largest, most expensive planetary infrastructure that we have ever built as a species. It is wild. I mean, basically the new Trump Project Stargate is unleashing not just a vast amount of capital, but capturing a huge amount of land for hyperscale data centers for generative AI that use enormous amounts of energy and water, and that's coming from those communities. For example, in Virginia right now, data centers use, I think it's over 20% of the state's energy. They're predicted by 2030 to be using 50% of the state's energy. So times that across the country in this huge rollout that we're seeing, you're looking at AI systems competing directly with humans for land, energy, water, basic resources of life. That is the real story that we're seeing with generative AI.
Indeed, and making this material, making it a material history, making it a geography, making it a human story, right? This is what this work of mapping has done. And we were talking beforehand about one of the things you've been looking at, right? These lithium mines, but you've been hanging out in North Carolina looking at sand too.
It's taken a turn. So in the last 6 months, I've been spending time in this, basically the only mine in the world that is used to produce ultra-pure quartz. It's really fine sand that is essential to making semiconductors. And it's extraordinary that there is one place in the world where this is coming from, and it's in North Carolina, in the Appalachian Mountains. And so I started going there, speaking to people, studying the mines, got into a little 4-seater plane, and we flew over the mines to sort of see how it cuts into the landscape. And then a few days after we had arrived, and this was like on one of our trips, Hurricane Helene hit and wiped out the town. It was under 12 feet of mud. Over 200 people died in the region. It was catastrophic. It was climate change in the most vivid way. They never get hurricanes in this part of the mountains. And so for me, it was this kind of extraordinary experience of being in the story of the impacts of AI on our ecologies, on our atmosphere, on our climate, and then living through the horror of it. and then trying to record that and trying to just understand how this is going to repeat and accelerate if we don't acknowledge what's happening and start to actually address it. And this is the real mission. How do we do that?